durian before? Durian. Sa taga Mindanao, Luzon. Durian, durian, durian. Who likes durian? Alright, alright. 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 Mga taga Mindanao, lahat ng nag-yee! Mindanao yan. Mindoro, Mindoro. Hoy, marami na kaming durian sa Vizcaya, bay. Yeah, we got a lot of durian. We get to taste it. Sa Quirino, a lot too, right? Oh, praise the Lord. So, in the beginning, I didn't like durian. I thought it smelled like the bathroom. My first time to smell it. It smelled like rotten onions and garlic. It was so disgusting. I was at Mountain View College, and I walked in my friend's home, and they were eating durian, and I said, wow, people from Mindanao are terrible. I said, how can they eat this thing so bad? However, my friend left the durian on the side, and I would come visit every so often. I actually stayed with them for a little while until I moved to the dorm. And I would smell the durian every day. After 4 days of smelling durian, yung pala plano na nila yun. They said, hey Brian, come on, sit down, just have fun. And they said, taste it. Taste it now. When I tasted it, I said, whoa. How is that possible? It actually tastes good. It tastes like ice cream, custard. Just so delicious. And it smelled so good. What in the world just happened? Like my brain just flipped around or something. I don't know what happened. Okay, so let me tell a little story. Not gonna be too long. I met the first family that I met when it came to homeschooling is when we did the med mission in Benguet, Kalinga. Remember that, Tita Wendy? I met a husband and wife. They were both nurses. A little older. They had a daughter. She was 23 years old. She was a doctor. And when we were doing the med mission, I noticed that she was not just in one spot. She was moving from one area to another, and then she would be with the children. And she was so good with the children. And then she would tell them stories. Then she'd go to then she'd check up all their ears and eyes, and they were just, she was like a magnet to children. One thing that caught my attention, our Ellen was just a baby. I had to leave them at that time to go do a med mission. Well, anyway, we had worship in the evening. After worship, I was sitting down in the living room area of the place where we were at, and the daughter comes walking. She was staying with the single ladies. Nagpumatok siya sa pinto ng parents. She knocked on her parents' door. She's 23 years old now. 23 years old. The mom and dad opened the door, and then she hugs them and says, I love you, Mama. I love you, Daddy. 23 years old? Maybe in the Philippines it's a little common, but in America, I don't know about that. I mean, that doesn't. But for someone like me who grew up in a broken home, never even got a hug, let alone have worship or, But I had our daughter, and I said, wow, when my daughter's 23, I want her to be like that. I was like, wow, I gotta talk to the parents for sure. So in the morning, I made sure to make a nice little, I was kind of spying out the mom, and I saw her kind of move to the terrace, and I took my opportunity. I said, ma'am, can I ask a question? I said, how did you train your daughter? How did you train your daughter? And she was like, oh, she was homeschooled. My first time to hear the word homeschool. Never heard it in my life. I was like, homeschool, what is that? And she said, oh, we taught her at home. I said, well, in the Philippines, how can you? I've never heard of somebody homeschooling, never. And she's like, oh, well, I don't know about the laws here in the Philippines, but I'm sure you do. She said, I said, well, do you have a curriculum? Do you have something? I wanted to prepare for my daughter's education. And she said, oh, don't worry. And she was so confident when she said that. I was like, no, but you need to share something with me. Can you share something? Here's my email. Just give me some of the material you got or whatever. And she says, okay, but I'll be praying for you. But she said, every child's different. She said, God will guide you with each child. And the material, don't worry. The Lord's going to just keep praying. And I was like, so that was my first encounter. Second one was we did another med mission in Palawan. And I met these families from the States. 2 families, or maybe 3, maybe 2 families. And we were doing med missions, and there was dental, and there was eye checkups, and minor surgeries, and this and that. And I noticed that these children, these young teenagers, about my children's age, 14 to 16, they were in each department. And I was in the eye department helping out, and I saw this young kid. He was 14 years old, 13 maybe, and he was doing the checkups. I mean, he was like, so fast, checking the eyes, and he was like, and at the end, I'm the one, like, just looking up the, 20, 40, whatever grade, and then we would try it on. But he does everything, and then we put the glasses on. You see the smile on the people's face because they can see so clear. And it was a 14-year-old. I was like, wow. And so I went to the dental and I observed, and then I saw teenagers there again doing the same thing, and they were helping out. And I said, wow, these children are awesome. I said, so I started to talk to the parents again when we had time. And I said, how did you train your children? My second time to hear that word. They were homeschooled. I was like, my baby's not even 1 yet, or probably 1-year-old at the time. But I was already thinking and praying, like, Lord, you're going to have to help me out. I don't have a clue. Okay. So I started asking a little bit, and then the parents said that they homeschooled. So I talked to the children. I talked to the doctor lady, the doctor daughter, and she said, I asked her, I said, so did you have any friends? Because some were like, oh, homeschool, they have no friends, they don't know how to socialize and all that stuff. But I was looking at her and I was like, she's pretty social to me. And I talked to her and I said, so how's homeschooling? Did you enjoy it? And she said, oh yeah, I loved it. I said, so what did you do for school? And she said, well, I studied for an hour a day. An hour a day? That was it? She was like, what did you do the rest of the day? Oh, I did chores with my mom. I helped her cook, and then I helped my dad in the garden, and that was my day. I was like, what? What kind of, what? My brain couldn't take it, But the Lord was, so the second family, I asked the parents, and then I talked to the children as well, just to be sure, especially the boys. I talked to one boy, and I was like, hey, brother, how did you enjoy homeschooling? And like, oh, we like it. Do you have any friends? Oh yeah, our homeschool is set up a little bit different. Our parents got together and they decided to get a teacher who teaches us, and then I said, do you have any friends? And he said, yeah, I have friends, but we select our friends. I said, I don't have any of the crazy friends. I was like, wow. I said, this is impressive. So anyway, the third family I met was the Boutte family. and I know many of us know them. I was invited by Ati Bing and Uncle Jerry to go to Aurora. She said, Brian, I want you to meet a family, and we have to go. When we get there, we're going to go right away. And you know, they're kind of like our mom and dad in the mission field. So I obeyed, and when we got there, we brought our tent, and then we set the tent outside, and then the Butays asked us to go and have worship with them by the ocean. This one caught my eye. We were having worship, and their little daughter, Kayla, meron silang ginawang box na maliit, na maraming mga naka-roll na papel. There was a lot of paper that were rolled, and they're all memory verses. Maybe like 60 of them, rolled in paper. Different colors and everything. And what they do is they pick. You're supposed to pick it, and then you read your memory verse, right? Well, there was 60 memory verses rolled up, and she knew them so well. And her mom shakes it up. When she picked it, her mom said, "Can you guess which one that is?" Without opening it. And she memorized the memory verse. And when she opened it, it was the right one. That just about blew my brains up. I was like, what? I mean, what? What just happened? So that one caught my eye. When we woke up in the morning, I saw the three of them? Four. Including Cadmiel, right? Three. There was three of them. The eldest, Kevin, Kayla, and Cadmiel. And they were walking with their timba, right? I was sitting in front of the tent, and they were walking with their pail, and then they had a plunger. They were new plungers inside the timba. And so my eyes were just following, and I was like, okay, what are they doing? They were marching, singing, and happy. Then they go to the pump. And then they bring out their laundry, and then they put it in the pail, and they put soap, and then they just started pumping like a washing machine. I was like, what am I just witnessing? So I watched that for a while. I was shocked. Like, wow, I mean, what? Children can actually wash clothes, while they're that young. But anyway, so we were there Thursday, there was Friday, and we prepared. Sabbath, we had Sabbath. Did we hike up in the afternoon, though? Well, we came back down. They took a nap because they were tired. And I couldn't take it anymore. I said, I have to talk to Dakwote. I have to ask him, what did you do? And so when I asked that question, then he started, I was wondering why he wasn't sharing anything with me. I'm like, you're not saying anything. But I guess one of his principles is, you gotta ask. If you don't ask, you're not gonna get it. And he says, when you ask, that means you're interested in learning. So when I asked, he sat me down, he had his tablet, and then he went through child guidance. We've read child guidance before. And the quotes he was giving, I was like blown away. I mean, I couldn't believe that those quotes were in there. And those were the 3 instances. And so we prayed. I was telling my wife, like, we have to pray. We need to learn this, whatever the Lord wants us to learn. And as we were praying, the Butays said, well, we should have a family camp. We've never had one before in Pamas, Quirino. And so they were telling us about the Codimers, how sila po yung bumisita sa bahay nila dun sa YouTube Pines na nagturo sa Butays the principles. And so that's when we invited them. That's when we had the first family Bible camp. Okay, let me just fast forward. How long does it take for a mango tree from seed to grow and bear a mango? Anybody? Agriculturists? 7 years? Okay. 7 years. 10? Okay. Coconuts, I think about somewhere around there, like 10, 7. Okay. True education is similar. When you plant the seed of truth in your children when they're babies, actually even in the womb. Actually, it starts with a mother when she doesn't even have a baby in the womb. That's when it's supposed to start, right? I think. My wife has more to say. I don't know why they asked me to share, but she's definitely the one who went through a lot of a good experience. Really nice. But, anyway, the tree bears, or the tree grows when it's small. It's kind of bendable. You can kind of shape it the way you want if you want it to kind of. But as it grows, it gets more firm, right? And it's the same with a child. You can teach it while it's young. I'm not saying old people like us can't learn, but it's definitely hard to teach an old dog how to sit. He doesn't want to sit, right? When you weren't taught how to sit when you were young and you're old and somebody says sit, you're going to be like, what's that? Right? So, I believe it was around that time. It was a little bit earlier than that, actually. That I started to taste the fruits of true education. A little bit early, we were doing. I think Ellen might have been around maybe 3, or even younger. I can't really recall, but anyway, we were doing an evangelistic, helping out an evangelistic series, doing the children's. She was 3, and we were helping set up some things, and I looked behind, and our daughter was standing on something like this, and there was children around, and she was telling the story of, which story was it? That was like Joseph or something. And she was just telling the story almost verbatim from the book that we kept reading. At 7 years old onwards, I have been able to taste the fruits of true education that was like durian, that I didn't like initially. Now it's my favorite fruit. And I get those hugs that I saw from that doctor lady daughter that was hugging her parents. I get it every day, morning and evening. Whenever I walk, they see me, they hug me. And you know when you taste that good durian, you know, I mean, there's different varieties, but when you get that good one, you're like, ooh, this is a good variety. Well, true education is the best variety. For those of you who haven't tried durian, I recommend you try it because it's really good. For those of you who haven't tried true education, I recommend you try it because it's really good. You might think it's weird at first, but once you get into it and you ask the Lord for guidance and you see how the Lord is working in your children It's all well worth it. I pray that each of us, those with children, when the Lord comes, He says, "Where are your children that I have given you to raise? My precious jewels to guard through every phase. I've trusted you to keep them safe, to guard from every snare, to bring them to my kingdom bright and fair." Where are the children? When I heard that song the first time, I was like, ooh. So, yeah, I believe it's the next one. Thank you. God bless you in your walking through education.